So Christy from Raw Beauty Christy asked me a question recently about postpartum, sex drive, and libido. I was like, I bet if Christy has these questions, so many other people have this question too. So she didn't actually like specifically reach out to me directly.
If you have any tips, please let me know.
I know the answer. Hey everybody, I'm Dr. Nicole, a pelvic floor physical therapist, mom of 2 little boys, and it's my favorite day of the week. It is TMI Tuesday. I am so excited to share with you about libido and sex drive, and thank you, Christy, for bringing up these topics that we need to talk more about. So let's head over to Christy's channel and see exactly what she said.
Has Zach and your sex life changed? Things are just different down there. I have like this pubic bone pain that I can't really explain.
The first thing that she says is she's actually having some physical pain, and she's describing this pain in her pubic bone. So if you want to find your pubic bone, you go to your belly button, you go about 6, 8, 10 inches down, depending on how tall or how short you are, and that bone that you feel that's right above your labia, that is your pubic bone. And it is not uncommon for women to have pain at this place during pregnancy or after pregnancy, or both in some unfortunate cases. Sometimes this is actually called lightning crotch. And yes, it's just as bad as it sounds. It literally shooting pain throughout our body, and it's usually made worse when we do things that our legs aren't together. Obviously having sex where you're typically in more of like a straddling or a wide leg position, that's gonna be super uncomfortable. Here are my tips for pubic symphysis pain. 1, you want to address the tightness in the muscles connected to your pelvis that might be causing your pelvis to come apart more. So it's really cool how our pelvis works actually, because it's able to draw together or come apart, and when we're pregnant we release a hormone called relaxin, which makes the pelvis open up in the front, which is perfect for our babies to like come down and be born vaginally. It's a very well thought out system. Unfortunately, sometimes that relaxin makes things so loosey-goosey that when other muscles in our body are weak or tight, it causes us a lot of pain. And this is the not so great part about how our pelvis works. So to address the tightness, you want to find tight muscles either in your butt cheeks, which is probably your piriformis or your glute max muscle. You find those sore spots, you either have your partner press on them. I mean, it's the least they can do. You just had their baby. You have them hold that for 2 to 5 minutes, or you can sit on a tennis ball or kind of equivalent sized ball, sit or lay on it and hold pressure there until that trigger point releases and you find some comfort. There are also often trigger points or tightness in our psoas muscle, which is basically the muscle that is responsible for bringing our knees up towards our chin. One of the 2 hip flexor muscles is called your psoas muscle, and it's hiding way deep in your pelvis underneath all of your guts and stuff, so it's a little bit hard to get to. But if you find your pelvis bones on the side, like the sharp ones, and you just slowly like sink your fingers in and under all that muscle and tissue and organ and all that stuff there, that is where your psoas muscle is going to be. If you are like, I don't ever want to touch my own psoas muscle, completely understandable. I don't like to find my own either, but I love finding it on my clients. So a pelvic floor physical therapist could definitely help you find this muscle and release it. But once you find that muscle, you're just gonna hold pressure there again for 2 to 5 minutes until the trigger point releases. Again, you can use that tennis ball sized ball, lay on it. If you're comfortable laying on your belly and you're not pregnant, please don't lay on your belly if you're pregnant. Relax or release that muscle on your own. The second thing you want to do for pubic bone pain is avoid those activities where your legs are apart. So maybe sex for a little while, or find a different position where your knees can be together, or activities like going up and down the stairs, getting in and out of the car where you swing one leg in and then you swing the other leg in. These are positions where your legs are apart and it's really uncomfortable for your pubic bone. So try to avoid those if at all possible. And then the third thing you want to do is you want to strengthen up your hip and your glutes to make sure you hold everything in there nice and tight. I'm going to link a video up here about some of those strengthening exercises that you can do if you are having that pubic symphysis pain or lightning crotch. I think the video might say it's for pregnancy, but disregard that. It is for pregnancy or postpartum. Equally well, these things, equally well? I don't think that's a thing. These things will work well no matter if you're pregnant or your postpartum. So definitely check that out if you are experiencing that pain.
Things are just different feeling, different looking. And I think the hardest part for me beyond like the physical is just like my libido. I don't know if it's a breastfeeding thing, but it is. What is a libido? I don't even know.
The second thing she brings up is just that things are different down there. Maybe they're painful, maybe they're uncomfortable, they feel different probably, they look different, she mentions, and these things are all true. First of all, in those early days postpartum, things are swollen, like a lot. If you had any tearing, episiotomy, they used a vacuum, they used forceps, it was a long pushing phase. Things are swollen, so they certainly look different. They feel different inside too because there is more space in there typically. I mean, a giant baby, head, shoulders, you've all seen a baby, right? That comes out of your body. It's not uncommon for things to feel bigger. Now, let me just say, there is not a floppy vagina. Your vagina is not going to be this like gaping hole. There could definitely be some strength problems. It might not feel as tight as it once did, but it's a muscle. We can strengthen that back up. Again, work with a pelvic floor physical therapist like myself or someone else. You can definitely get things straightened out and tightened back up fairly quickly. Caveat to all that, if you are experiencing pain with sex and it's more than like, oh, that was uncomfortable, okay, it's getting better each time, please see a pelvic floor physical therapist. It is not normal to have pain with sex for like more than a couple times. And there are a lot of things that we can do. And I hate when providers tell you that, oh, this is just normal, you had a baby, and then they just leave you like that, even though you might have a tight pelvic floor, you might have scar tissue, you might have a lot of things going on, and we can fix those problems if we know about them and we address them. If you're learning something about your libido and your postpartum sex drive, please do me a huge favor and hit that like button. You have no idea how much I appreciate when you do that. The third thing she mentions, which is totally valid, is libido. Now, she asks, is this because of breastfeeding? Kind of. Breastfeeding contributes to it. So, after you have a baby, your body decides to create, are hormones created? I'm not sure. It makes prolactin, and when it makes prolactin, it's trying to be able to produce milk so that if you want to breastfeed, you can do that. In response to that, our progesterone levels and estrogen levels, which were really high during pregnancy, just plummet. They go way down, and when they do so, it affects our sex drive because progesterone and estrogen are the two main drivers of sex drive in our bodies. Estrogen actually is not only in charge of sex drive, but it's also in charge of lubrication in our vagina. So if you've tried to have sex, it feels really dry, it feels like sandpaper, that ain't going in here. It could be because your body has high levels of, not high, it has low, that's the whole thing that I just said. It has low levels of estrogen, and so it's not producing as much natural lubricant. So you might need to invest in a good lubricant. It's not a big deal, it's not a problem, nothing to be embarrassed about. It's just how it is pretty much until you quit breastfeeding, probably for a few weeks until your hormones in your body regulates again. Progesterone is the other hormone that's really low. This hormone is in charge of your sex drive, your mood, and your sleep. And so when this is low, it means you're probably not going to ovulate. We need to ovulate to make more babies, and this is kind of, I feel like, a little bit of a self-defense mechanism for our bodies, because how many of us want to have another baby at 4 weeks postpartum? Not me. I had my babies pretty close together, but 4 weeks seems like a little much. So our body's natural reaction is to fluctuate our hormones so that we don't ovulate and produce an egg and therefore cannot get pregnant for a while. Now, if you don't breastfeed, you don't get on birth control, there is a chance you could start ovulating very quickly within those 4 weeks. So I'm not saying that you won't for sure ovulate, but for many of us, it's months and maybe even years if you breastfeed that long before your period returns. And it all has to do with low levels of progesterone in your body. The other thing that affects progesterone is cortisol levels, which are triggered by stress. You have more stress, you produce more cortisol, you have lower levels of progesterone. I mean, a new mom's not really stressed though, right? Like, that shouldn't be a problem. Unless you have world's best, easiest baby, no, take that back. You're still gonna have stress, even if you have the world's best, easiest baby. We have a baby, we're not sleeping normally, which again is affected by progesterone. We are trying to care for a new human, we are trying to care for ourselves, we're trying to juggle other children and our relationship, and the list goes on and on. And so yes, we have stress, and because of this, we most likely are going to have higher levels of cortisol and lower levels of progesterone. There's not a whole lot that we can do about this fluctuation in hormones, especially if we're going to breastfeed. They're going to fluctuate for quite a while. My best tips for you here are get a good lubricant and don't be afraid to use a lot of it, and try to reduce stress levels as much as humanly possible. And although this isn't easy to do, you can definitely recruit and accept help from family and friends that are offering. Hire a postpartum doula if you have the financial means to do so, and allow yourself some time for self-care because it is a very stressful time. On that same note, as I said, progesterone is in charge of mood, and this kind of leads to postpartum mood disorders like postpartum anxiety, postpartum depression. Typically, it's a lot more than just baby blues. And Christy over at Raw Beauty Christy does a beautiful job of explaining her experience, a very vulnerable, real, authentic story about her struggles with postpartum depression and anxiety. And so you should definitely check out those videos if you are at all interested in that. And if you just want to learn about like how to do beautiful makeup, then you should also go to her channel because she has that there too.
Many of the times it's actually more that my brain cannot compartmentalize him. Like, I cannot stop thinking about the baby, the baby, the baby, the baby, the baby, the baby, the baby. It's always the baby. I want to like be able to enjoy the moment without thinking constantly about like, oh, is he gonna wake up? Is this gonna happen? I can't like stop my brain from just doing what my brain does, and it's very, 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 very frustrating.
The fourth point that she brings up, which is so under-recognized but very important, is that our minds, especially as a new mom, are just racing. Like, they are thinking about so many things. When's the last time I fed my baby? What side did I feed my baby on? Am I gonna pump enough milk? Why are they crying? Do they need their diaper changed? Can I hear them crying? All these things, which are totally relevant, and it's very hard to shut those things off and get in the mood for sex. I can completely relate to this. Some of my tips for these things going on are to make sure that when all those things are racing through your mind, if it's like a to-do list or a checklist type thing, get out your phone, get out a piece of paper and a pen, and write these things down. Stop wasting your brain power on that and get them on paper, get them out of your head. The second thing is to not wait to think about intimacy and connection with your partner until you get into the bedroom. When they say sex starts in the kitchen, it absolutely does. It starts with that connection throughout the day. You're having conversation, you're feeling supported, they're helping you out. And then when it is time for intimacy, you are able to connect on that level. And that also goes into another tip, which is just communicating with your partner. Like, maybe they don't realize that you can't just jump in bed and be in the mood in 5 seconds. So explain that to them, let them know that you're going to need to foster, to nurture that throughout the day if that is something they are expecting to do later in the day. And then the final tip on this, do you ever have a thought and it just like completely leaves your brain? It's gone. And then the final tip on this is that you need to feel like you have the time, the space, and the energy to have sex. Like, if you're dead tired, you jump into bed totally exhausted, you missed your nap, you've been hustling around trying to get everything ready for tomorrow, there's no way you're gonna be like, let's stay up an extra 30 to 60 minutes to have sex. It's probably not one of your priorities. But what if you recruited your partner to allow you the time to nap during the day? They could help you with some of the chores around the house. They could help with maybe the baby's bedtime routine to help them get in bed sooner. Or one of these ways, they're able to support you so that when it is time for sex, you have a little bit of extra time and energy. If you want more of a deep dive into, okay, I'm really struggling with intimacy postpartum, what do? I made a complete guide to postpartum intimacy. I'm going to link that above and in the description. I hope that answered your question, Christy, and if not, I'm sure there are many of you out there that have had these same struggles. You're not sure what to expect after having your baby, you're running into lots of obstacles, and you're like, am I ever gonna have good sex again? Yes, I assure you that it is possible, even if that means you need to reach out to a pelvic floor physical therapist or just get more information, which is where I think my guide will be really helpful for you. There are lots of ways to make sure that eventually, when you're ready, you are able to have sex again. Thanks for hanging out with me on this TMI Tuesday. I would love to have you subscribe and join our community if you are interested in learning all these things about how the female body works. As I mentioned, I have a video all about postpartum intimacy that answers a lot more questions than I did in this video. I'm gonna throw that video up on the screen here, so definitely check there next if you are interested in learning more about how to have a good sex life after having your baby. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today, and I will see you all in the next video.